Good morning everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. We're singing for England. If you're English, you might be singing for Scotland if you're not. But I've got my preview for that. The link's in the video description. Check it out. Massive game tonight. We'll have a watch along 8 o'clock on That's Football. But we're here to talk about Manchester United, of course, and some rather interesting situations. I'm keeping my eye on the Spanish outlets a lot at the moment around Varane. We've also got some updates around Paul Pogba in what is essentially a United Pogba warning from both sides, really. Mino Raiola is looking at options for Paul Pogba. PSG seem to be the front runner at the moment, but Manchester United apparently backing themselves into a corner that they will not let Pogba's contract run down and let him go for nothing, which means we're heading towards a good thing in July, but we're heading towards a decision in July. We either sell Pogba or he signs a new contract, which I think ultimately is the best outcome, because to lose him for free is nothing, which therefore leads you into a situation that if you are Real Madrid, do you look at a Paul Pogba swap with Varane, and would Manchester United entertain that to get Varane? We'll have to talk about that, of course. Sancho, a little bit of an update about him, a little bit about Harry Kane as well, and a few other stories. But let's start off with what's going on in Spain. So realistically, the British press are not going to be the best for this. When it involves Madrid, you go hunting around Madrid outlets, and they're different. You know, there's some with credible, who are credible, some that are not so credible. But generally, when you encapsulate the whole thing that's going on around Real Madrid at the moment from numerous sources, there is a belief that Real Madrid will not be able to keep Varane at Real Madrid, will not be able to keep him. They're fighting desperately to do it, but effectively Varane wants big wages. Now, if you have a player, and we did this with Ander Herrera, if you've got a player that's already yours, and that player is on, say, £8 million a year, and they say, I'll stay, but give me £16 million a year, that's quite a big thing to swallow. But if you are a club that wants that player and he's not your player, and you're not going to have to pay the transfer fee, and they say they want £16 million a year, you're more likely to do it because you go, at the end of the day, we're getting him for free, so we'll give him them wages. So that is where Real Madrid are at the moment. And also, I think it's very clear that Varane is really thinking about a career change, a change of direction. Zidane's not there anymore. He wants to change. So there is a real belief that Varane will leave Real Madrid, and that Manchester United and PSG are the front runners for this deal, with some even saying that Manchester United are leading the race. Now, I don't believe Manchester United are leading the race. I don't see how they can lead the race against a team like PSG, who've got more money, more competence than us. But that's where we're at the moment. It looks like it's a two-horse race for Raphael Varane between Manchester United and Real Madrid, which then leads into the Pogba dilemma that Manchester United face. But look, in summary, you know, we even had the story last night from Manchester Evening News that Raphael Varane, Manchester United have actually bid for him. So that would back up the fact that United are heavily in for him. And I can tell you that with total calmness, Manchester United's priority centre-back is Raphael Varane. It's a very hard deal to do, but it is Raphael Varane. We'll probably end up with Torres or maybe a Koundé, but Raphael Varane is the priority for Manchester United. So we're going to see how that develops. I mean, some people are saying Zidane at the moment. Scooby-Doo, yep, Scotland game tonight, Scooby-Doo. Jim White, Scott McTominay, yeah, fantastic. But yes, Zidane in and Ollie out, says Steve. I mean, look, people are going to progress towards that, I suppose. I understand that. But look, very, very quickly, very importantly, before we talk about Pogba as well, you may not have noticed this, but Simon Stone was releasing some Manchester United financial information last night. £443 of... 400. I wish it was £443. Imagine if Man United's debt was £443. I think I'd ring them up and pay that off myself to get us out of debt. I can't ring up and get £443 million of debt out. Our debt has increased to £443 million. And also in that time, the Glazers have taken another 8 million out, according to those figures. Another 8 million out in dividends. So still massively in debt, still dividends being come out, and still United have not delivered any stadium restructure, any reform, any signings, any share scheme. It's the same old United at the moment. Look, let's see where we are in a few weeks. But the thing continues. Ram says that Lucas saying that Ollie's looking for a formation which requires a specialist CDM. Now, this is this feeds into Paul Pogba here. So listen to this. This is coming from the Manchester Evening News. Solskjaer is contemplating a formation change next season that would necessitate a specialist defensive midfielder to hold the fort, and is unlikely Manchester United would entertain retaining Pogba just until January. Now, I don't know how those two things work together, But ultimately, goes on to say that sources at Manchester United's plans for next summer insist Paul Pogba's future is problematic, as any midfield addition hinges on his possible sale. Now, this is really weird. I don't get this. So you've got United are looking at a formation change that really needs a centre defensive midfielder. And then they link Pogba to that by saying that any plans to bring a midfielder in depends on Paul Pogba's future. I don't get this. I've never understood this. And if anybody can explain this to me, please do. We're talking about Paul Pogba's future here. We're talking about Manchester United buying a midfielder. And that's the third time now I've heard this in the last few weeks. Romano started it off. I've heard it again there, and somebody else told me this, that United are not looking at a midfielder unless Paul Pogba leaves. And I'm like, what the hell is going on at this club? I heard Scott McTominay doing an interview ahead of the Scotland game. His head was so far up Darren Fletcher, Mike Phelan, Carrick and McKenna's arse, you couldn't see his ankles. Like, it was unbelievable. It was like, the attention, he doesn't speak Scottish, so I can't do it. The attention to detail is amazing. They're amazing coaches. And I thought, I wonder why McTominay gets picked so much. He's so far up the arses of these coaches. You know, he's coming out their mouth. You know, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And look, what I would say about that is, if our coaches are so good and their attention to detail is so good, why don't they train us to deal with set pieces? Why don't they train us to deal with the low block? But my point is, if you're thinking about a formation change and you're thinking about buying a CDM, what idiot thinks you need to sell Pogba to get a CDM? Have we not been watching France? They were on the other bloody night. Where's all our coaches? Where's Ollie's? Are they on a bloody hiking holiday to bloody the Mount Everest or something where there's no Wi-Fi? What Paul Pogba needs a specialist CDM, and you get the best out of Paul Pogba. Why do we need to sell Pogba to bring in a CDM? And I keep hearing this all the time. We'll only get a CDM if we sell Paul Pogba. For God's sake, man. We've got one of the best midfielders in the world when you give him a specialist CDM. But we'll sell Pogba to bring a CDM. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I just don't get it. I do not get it. It's like having a Ferrari on your drive with no wheels. So you buy the wheels in part exchange for the Ferrari. So you've got your wheels and no Ferrari again. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But look, there's obviously some truth in this, because we are continually being linked with, if we're going to buy a midfielder, we've got to sell Pogba. It makes no sense. We need a CDM. As for this formation change, I've got no idea. I've got no idea at all. But on Paul Pogba, because we're talking about that, my concern about Pogba is obviously this, and this talk this morning that, and I think this is coming from, maybe it'll be coming from the Manchester Evening News. I'll probably be able to check it out for you. But basically, what's being said about Paul Pogba is that there's a few updates that are quite interesting here, but let me just see where this is coming from about Paul Pogba. I think it's coming from French sources, basically. So if we say French sources, that basically covers it. But it's out there that Paul Pogba, Mino Raiola's talking to PSG. He's got a good relationship with Leonardo, who I think is their sporting director, whatever. And they're looking at the option of that, and PSG may even make a move this summer. But in a nutshell, the Pogba situation is thus. If we do not get him to sign a new contract, we have to sell him this summer. Otherwise, he's going to walk out the door for nothing. And it's unpalatable that Manchester United go into next season with Paul Pogba not signing a new contract. Because what will happen is, we'll start the season in August. Pogba won't have signed the new contract. And the way they'll sell this, we're still working on the new contract. And it will go August, September, October, November, December. We're still working on a new contract. And then January, we'll talk to everybody else. So you can't have Paul Pogba here next year. If you're trying to build something, you can't have Paul Pogba next year unless he signs a new deal. So United have got to sort something out. And PSG are probably the one team that can come in and go, there's £50 million for Paul Pogba. So I'm wondering here, when you work through the crap, when Romano says United buying a midfielder depends on Paul Pogba, I'm wondering here, I've got a theory. I'm wondering if actually United know Pogba's going to go, but they don't know whether they can sell him. And if they sell him for 50 million quid, it gives them money to buy a CDM. I think that's the truth here. I think it's a sell to buy thing. I don't think it's an ambition thing. I don't think Manchester United are ambitious. I think that the reason people keep saying if United wants a midfielder, Pogba's going to have to go, is because of that. I don't think United have got the money to buy a midfielder. So I think what they're saying is, instead of like a Chelsea or a Man City, let's buy a midfielder to play with Pogba, let's buy a CDM to play with Pogba, I don't think United have got any money. So I think United are saying, we've got to sell. If Pogba goes, we can afford to buy a midfielder. I think that's what it's all about, sell to buy. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but it seems very clear to me. Why would you sell Pogba to get a midfielder when you need a midfielder to play with Pogba? So it seems to me we haven't got any money, so we need to sell Pogba to get a midfielder, and therefore the story is out there from Romano and Manchester Evening News that buying a midfielder depends on Pogba's future, because if Pogba goes for 50 million, you've got 50 million to buy a midfielder. And I think that's probably what it's all about, which again shows the lack of ambition at this football club. A few super chats. McTominay is definitely parched. If you know, you know, says Reese. Morning, Mark. I know Lindelof is crap. Can't we use him as a CDM? No. God, what? We're Manchester United, Mikhail. We're Manchester United. Why do people want us to treat us like fucking Southampton? Oh, we need a CDM, so let's move Lindelof there. God almighty. Do you think Chelsea would do that? We can't be asked to buy a CDM. Let's put Thiago Silva at CDM. You know, do you think Man City will do that? Oh, let's put John Stones at CDM. Buy a bloody CDM. Stop giving this club excuses not to spend money. I'd rather have a swap with Varane than Ronaldo. We need to bolster our defence, but I would be sad to lose Pogba, says Kanishka. And hi, Mark. When do you think most big signings will be announced? And following statements of Donny's agents, will he start allowing St. Paul or Rice, says Carl. I think that... isn't 8 million the amount of the fine the Glazers said they would pay from their own pockets, says Sean Steve Trainer. Good. So dividends have gone out of the club for 8 million and they're going to pay for the fine out of their own money. What a brilliant... That's line of the day. Steve Trainer with line of the day. Remember a couple of weeks ago the Glazers said they'd pay the Super League fine from their own money. Well, they've took 8 million out of the club in dividends and the fine's about 8 million. So well done, Steve. You've exposed them again. Well done. They haven't paid out their own bloody money. They've took it out of the club, haven't they? But look, the one thing I didn't cover there is that on Varane, if we're going to buy Varane, and we want to buy Varane, if we're going to get Varane, Real Madrid don't want to sell Varane, we've got Paul Pogba, they'd like Paul Pogba. Imagine if Real Madrid said, well, we want Paul Pogba as part of this deal in a swap deal. That could happen. I don't see it happening. I don't think United would want to do that. I'm not convinced Paul Pogba would want to do that. And maybe Varane wouldn't want to come to United anyway. But look, my hope, and I don't think this will happen, my hope is that Pogba's going to sign a new contract. We'll buy Varane, we'll buy Sancho, and we'll buy a CDM. And that will give us a platform that if Ollie fails, at least another manager can come in and do quite well. But yeah, I mean, I do think that with Pogba, it's heading to... And the worrying thing about Pogba is he's playing again tomorrow for France. He's going to be playing for France 5 or 6 more times in front of the world. And clubs are going to go, he's got 1 year left on his deal, let's move for him. So yeah, Jason, I'm not angry today. I'm in a really good mood. England, Scotland, Scooby-Doo. There is a change. We might come out worse than last year by the end of this window. There's a chance. Salmon, there is a chance we could come out worse than we were last year. I said this before. If you lose Pogba and you get Sancho, I think we're in a worse situation because Sancho's a fantastic player, but our midfield's crap enough without Paul Pogba leaving. You know, our midfield is awful. You know, last night Fred played well for Brazil again because I woke up this morning and had people tagging me into stuff saying, sit down, Goldbridge. Fred's done great for Brazil, and I'm like, sit down where? Where I'll have a sit down, but and I'll tell you why Fred's shit. You know, so what are you talking about? Sit down because he's playing well for Brazil. Have you had your head buried up your arse for the last year? He's crap. He's absolutely crap. The ball bounces off him like a brick wall. He can't pass. He doesn't score. He's useless. Absolutely useless, Fred. So I couldn't give a toss what he's doing in a Brazil shirt. He does next to nothing in a United shirt, and he will never, ever, 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 ever lift a Premier League trophy or a Champions League trophy. He'll never do it. He's not that good. He's not good enough. I want Manchester United to lift Premier League trophies and Champions League trophies because that's where they should be. If you want to lower your expectations and become a Fredster passion merchant chanting about him and McTominay, you crack on. Sports Direct, you can probably get a Brazil and Scotland shirt. Crack on. They're not good enough in a United shirt. And I will sit here and I will say that. And if they prove me wrong, I will be happy. I will happily applaud them. But based on what I've seen over the last year, those two players are a huge problem at United. And I don't need to see what they do for Scotland or Brazil because I've seen what they've done for United over a whole season and they ain't good enough. Where I will concede is that if you bought a Declan Rice or you bought an Ndidi and Fred came off the bench for half an hour in the more freer box-to-box role, he's got his We bought Fred as a box-to-box player. That's my point. Scott McTominay is a box-to-box player. Van der Beek is a box-to-box player. Pogba is a box-to-box player. We have got no specialist centre defensive midfielder, and this is what we need to get. So, you know, Fred for Brazil, McTominay we're using them out of position, and they struggle. 50 million from Pogba is enough to buy Zakaria and Awar. Would be a massive upgrade, says Vignesh. Camavinga as well, I'd like him. Hi Mark, when's the next United Stand meet-up? With Donny's agent's words, what's his future, says Carl. I don't know about the meet-up because it's always dependent on the old... COVID, isn't it? It's always on that. Please do the Scrappy-Doo impression. So Scooby-Doo is Scotland, right? But last week against Czech Republic, we were more like Scrappy-Doo. Let me at him. He's the little nephew of Scooby-Doo. So Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. Let me at him. He's like this little dog who tries to fight big things and they just hold him off with the hands. So will it be Scooby-Doo tonight for Scotland, or will it be Scrappy-Doo? Let me at him. So we'll find out tonight what we're going to get with that. Scooby-Doo or his nephew Scrappy-Doo. Still no Deadwood clear out, says Andy. Well, I've got a few updates to go through, actually. Let's go through the latest news. And the best place for me to give you that is probably just to go through this at the United Journal, because they've got loads of stuff on there this morning on Twitter. So let's have a look at stuff that we've got on there. Shout out to them. So Jesse Lingard is planning to speak with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer about his future when he returns to Carrington next month. That's from the Manchester Evening News. Marcus Rashford's shoulder and ankle injuries should be finally addressed following England's European Championship campaign. You wonder how long he'll be out. You know, it's all right Rashford being part of the Euros, but, you know, when he gets those... I mean, look, if he's going to have an ankle operation, he's not going to be out of the Euros till sort of front of July. Season start of August. He might miss the start of the season. Dean Henderson's been given a month off after he checked in at Carrington on Wednesday for treatment on his glute and a minor knee issue. So he's got a month off, which is good. Also, there was a mention, there is no room for Facindo Pellistri in Solskjaer's squad next season, especially if the Jadon Sancho deal materialises. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? You wonder why we bought Pellistri. Is Pellistri, I mean, I'll put this to the chat, is Pellistri now looking like a panic buy? Because... is Amad Diallo a panic buy? You know, I've always felt that Diallo and Pellistri were deals that were a little bit sus. Because we spent all summer trying to buy Sancho. We embarrassed ourselves. And then we ended up with these quick two youngsters. Pellestri's barely been at Manchester and won't be here next year. And Diallo really didn't get much of a chance last year. So it is interesting. We'll have to see what happens with that. Fred's defensive numbers are actually very good. He just can't pass, says Daniel Kirk. Mate, look, I like Fred. I think people assume that you know if you disrespect a player as a player, you hate the person. I don't hate the person. I wouldn't sell Fred. I think Fred as a bench player is perfect. You know, I think about people like Darren Fletcher and, you know, other people down the years that effectively, yeah, he did end up being a first team player for a while, but I always think Darren Fletcher was a bench player when we had the best team that we had. Fred's a bench player for me. Hi Mark, as time progresses, my faith in United's completing these transfers is dwindling. Woodward is playing poker with Dortmund for the Sancho fee. Varane is apparently more interested in a move to PSG. No faith whatsoever, says Suradeep. Well, we could be being played. Don't clip the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo thing. I don't want it to go mad big tonight if Scotland somehow pull off a miracle. So... in respect for Goldbridge and the United Stand, please don't clip that Scooby-Doo thing. It's a bit like the, you know, what goes on tour stays on tour. I know some stuff does get clipped, but we are a community and some of it is just for us. I'll stop doing it. I'm going to stop doing that sort of thing if people start doing that. Because if Scotland win, I'm screwed. So, and I've done my England-Scotland preview, and if you check what I said in that, links in the video description, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Scotland could win. Right, other updates. Unless Manchester United... What's this? This is from Manchester Evening News, and this sort of fits in with what I was saying. Unless Manchester United fix a move for Sancho or Rafael Varane, they're unable to afford a midfielder without cashing in on significant assets. Yeah, this is what I mean about the Pogba thing. It's starting to make sense to me now. I think we need to sell to buy in the midfield. That's why they're saying if Van der Beek and Pogba stay, we won't buy anybody, which means more McFred. Now, this is coming from the Mirror. Now, I've got no time for the Mirror. For me, I would say they're real. You know, I rank reliability out of sort of, I do it gold, bronze, silver, and bin. That's my ranking system. Because I think 5 tiers is too many. So I have 4 tiers. I have a gold tier, silver tier, bronze tier, and bin tier. Now, for me, the Mirror would be bronze tier at best, sometimes in the bin. But some people seem to think that John Cross in the Mirror is a good source. Well, he's saying that Jadon Sancho is closing in on a 75 million deal for Manchester United. Further talks with Dortmund have had an opening offer of 67 million turned down, but they're super confident of getting a move over the line. I mean, look, I don't know whether that could be regurgitation, because the reality is Manchester United are closing in on a deal and they are super confident. I'm super confident. I am 90% club. That's not died. You know, I thought I'd never bring 90% club back, and I brought it back, a week and a half ago? It is still here. I just don't know when the deal's going to happen. So, yeah, they're also saying in the Mirror that Manchester United are on a hunt for a centre-back and have been linked with Varane. Real Madrid are prepared to let him leave for the right offer despite Ramos's exit. Varane is refusing to pen fresh terms as he looks to double his salary, which we've spoken about as well. And PSG are among several clubs interested in Varane, which we know. And Trippier is a player that Ollie wants, which we know as well. McTominay talking about the coaches, which is great. Obviously, Scooby-Doo has he's got a big game tonight against England. Pogba we've spoken about. Here's a story from AS saying that Sevilla are determined not to undersell Jules Koundé and are in no rush to listen to offers below 55 million euros, which is what Man City offered last summer. Chelsea and Arsenal have their focus on Koundé, but none has yet made a decision to be hard in signing. I mean, for me, if Manchester United don't get Varane, you've got to go for Koundé. I mean, Pep did want Koundé last year. Pep did bid for Koundé last year and ended up with Ruben Diaz, which is probably brilliant, but it just shows you Koundé's a fantastic player. I think he'd be brilliant at Manchester United. I really do, and I would really like him to come to Manchester United. And then we've just got a load of stuff from Spain again about United's new kit looks shit. You know, the red kit looks absolutely crap. I've just seen a picture of it. It does look rubbish. It really does look crap and basic. But then again, minimalist might work quite well. It could do. Yeah, it could be quite interesting how that works out, really. But there you go. So that's a blast of the morning news there. The way Steve exposed the Glazers, I haven't seen that much exposure since my wife went for a giant... Oh, no, I'm not going to say that, Michael. And sorry to put fuel on the fire, but what are your thoughts about the rumours of Mata's new reduced contract and maybe offered the director of football, says Vikram. I think in relation to Juan Mata, I don't want to sound disrespectful or ungrateful, but I am going to sound like that because that's what you say when you know you're going to say something like that. He's on 140 grand a week, apparently. He's been finished for about 3 years, in my mind. You know, however many years you think, that's up to you. We've paid that guy millions of pounds for nothing, really. I mean, apparently he writes... I don't even think he writes a blog anymore, which I used to enjoy. But do we need a cheerleader in the dressing room when you've got people like Harry Maguire, Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, David De Gea, Marcus Rashford, Edison Cavani, who actually play on the pitch? Do they not go in the dressing room as well then? So why do we need Juan Mata or Nemanja Matic in the dressing room when they don't play? Is that not... I've played football, so I've never understood this. The only good argument I ever hear from anybody about keeping Juan Mata is he's well liked in the club and he's a big influence in the dressing room. But if I've had a bad game, if I'm like Wan-Bissaka and I go into the dressing room and I'm a bit quiet, I've got Bruno Fernandes, Cavani, Harry Maguire, Marcus Rashford, Paul Pogba, who are all players playing for the team who can talk to me. And then I've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Mike Phelan, Michael Carrick and McKenna. I've got 9 people I can talk to, coaches and players. When does Mata get... There's only 10 minutes at half time. When does Mata come over and put his arm around my shoulder? So, why would you pay over 100 grand a week for somebody like that? It makes no sense. Ultimately, this is jobs for the boys again. And look, Juan Mata could go on to be one of the best coaches and one of the best director of footballs in the world. But we can't keep giving jobs to people with no experience. Darren Fletcher's got no experience. Michael Carrick's got no experience. McKenna's from the youth team. Like, why do we keep recruiting people who've done nothing in the game? So for me, Mata should go. Matic should go. Like, we can't be a retirement home for every bloody player that's at the club. You know, we just seem to be unable to say goodbye. Well, like an elastic band, people walk away and then they bounce back. Like, it's like every player's got a bungee cord on the back. Lingard goes to West Ham, does really well. Boing, he's back again. You know, it's like, I don't get why we can't just be ruthless. Every other club that's been successful, including ours. You know, as I said the other day, I don't want to talk about Pep being ruthless because and Klopp ruthless. And Chelsea are really ruthless with managers and players. We're the blueprint. What people forget, unfortunately, we fell into a world, haven't we now, where we look at Man City, we look at Chelsea and we go, oh, they're the blueprint. Do you know where they got the blueprint from? Us. Who was the football club that dominated the Premier League for, 20 years? Manchester United. Manchester United dominated the Premier League for 20 years. Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, they looked at what we were doing and evolved and came up with a hybrid of it. Now we're looking at Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City when we were the club that bloody set it all off. Ruthlessness came from Sir Alex Ferguson and we're not ruthless anymore. What is the most realistic transfer that you definitely see happening this summer, says Defanch? Well, the two I've always said, and to be honest, the Trippier one might not happen now because of the price. But Sancho will happen. I'm very confident that'll happen. If we had a cheerleader in the dressing room, that would perk them up. Be hitting wood all game, says Galactic Sabres. Okay, a real cheerleader. Yeah. Woodward's parting gift will be a Pogba for Herrera swap, says Duncan. Hi Mark, any news on getting Grealish, says the big channel. Look, I could spend ages talking to you about Jack Grealish. I was talking about this on the preview. Do check my preview out for the Scotland game. The link's in the video description. It's really good and there's a few impressions you might like. But look, I don't know. This is as a football fan, there are probably 2 or 3 players in world football that when I talk about them, it just gets me in the chest. It's like, it just gets me really happy. It's like happy. And, Schweinsteiger used to, non-United players, I'm talking about United players, obviously I love United players. So, even the players I'm not sure on, McTominay scores a goal or Fred scores a goal. I love it. I love United players. I just want them to be the best they can be. And if they're not good enough, I'm very open to that. But there are some players that are not United players that just get me. Like Ronaldo, although I always see him as a United player. It's been a long time. Ronaldo always gets me there. Schweinsteiger, for some reason, always used to get me there when he was not a United player. And there's been, Zidane used to get me there. Jack Grealish gets me there. Like, I would move heaven and earth if I was Manchester United to get Jack Grealish. I think Pogba needs to go for it to happen. And look, I want Pogba to stay. But if Pogba goes, I would find the money to get Jack Grealish. We're going to buy Sancho. I'm never going to say anything negative about Sancho because we're going to buy him and I want him to do well and we've got to get behind him and I do want him. But my dream attacking signing is Jack Grealish. I think he is absolutely incredible, Mark. He's absolutely fantastic. But I do think that. I'm convinced he would tear it up at United. I'm convinced he's better than Rashford on the left. I'm convinced he would make us so different. And Rashford could just go to the right. No problem with that. But it's not going to happen because we're going to buy Sancho. But I think Grealish would be better for us than Sancho. But we've gone down the Sancho route. I just think Jack Grealish is the player that I would love at United. Absolutely love him. Wayne up, and we're not going to buy him. We're not going to buy him. Last summer was the chance and the Glazers blew it. Wayne, Rude, Eric, sell one, bench one, play one, says the nearly. I'm not doing that. Sell one, bench one, buy one. I'm not doing that. The chat can do that. Sell one, bench one, buy one. Rooney, Cantona and Rude. I don't really go in for nostalgic and I don't really go in for hypotheticals, but the chat will do it. Rashford is rubbish on the right, Mark, says D3. I just love him. We're balls deep in the Sancho deal. Look, the Sancho deal is going to happen. This is why I don't take any notice about Kingsley Coman because he is available, but United aren't looking at that. We will buy Sancho. And look, you know what? We've got to get behind Jadon Sancho. He's a really good player. He's got the potential still to be one of the top players in the world. I think what you need to expect with Sancho is patience. I hope he will, but I don't think he's going to tear the game up week in, week out. And if you don't expect him to do that, and he does, then he exceeds those expectations. For me, he's a young English player, and that's why he's costing a lot of money, who's done fantastically well in Germany. And I think he will do well at United. But we need to be patient with him. And also, please be careful in relation to his personality off the pitch. He is a little bit like Pogba. You know, he is a bit flamboyant. He does like the social media. You know, we've been down this road before with people like Lingard. You know, let's not be beating these players up because of, you know, what they're doing off the pitch. Because Sancho is definitely heading down that route of a Pogba and a Lingard in relation to brand awareness and deals like that. So he's going to be everywhere. And the problem with that is when you're everywhere and then you're not performing on the pitch, it can make fans become, you know, we've seen it with Lingard and we've seen it with Pogba, and I fell victim of that as well. So we just got to be patient with Sancho because we are going to buy him, and I don't think he deserves any negativity before he comes into the club, because the club have basically created that negativity because they've done it. They've taken so long on the deal. Sancho's a party boy. Well, I don't know about that, MD. I don't know about that. Why are we making an England 11 only buying English players? What's the real reason, says Aidan. I think that ultimately we've spoken about this quite a few times, and I think that's a great question. I think ultimately, if you look at United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Norwegian, but he's basically spent most of his life in England. Carrick is English, McKenna is English, Mike Phelan is English. You know, the board is English, isn't it? You know, Richard Arnold, Ed Woodward, Murta, Darren Fletcher's obviously British. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think United have many coaches that are you know, foreign, i.e. outside British. And there seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall that there was some mention of British players more than once. I mean, there was that silly story last season that they want an English-speaking centre-back. I mean, there are, you know, I would argue that someone like a Victor Lindelof or a Donny van der Beek probably speak English better than some of our English players. So there does seem to be an underlying British focus at Manchester United, and I don't know why. Sir Alex Ferguson didn't have that. You know, Pep Guardiola doesn't have it. Klopp doesn't have it. I don't know. I think it's a very... Look, I'm not comparing United being very British to, you know, some of those people out there that we see that are very closed-minded individuals about, you know, their country. And I think you know where I'm heading with that. But if you close your mind off and only... It's like having a job, right? It's like if you've got your own business, right? If you've got a business and you only recruit people from within 10 miles of where you live, then you've got a very small talent pool. But if you're willing to recruit anybody from, you know, living 100 miles from where you live, if they want to travel, it's up to them. You've got a bigger talent pool. I don't know why United would be so focused on British players. There is no proven advantage. There is no proven advantage. If anything, it's more expensive because British players are more expensive. There is no evidence that having a team of British players makes you more successful in the Premier League. In fact, it's the other way. So I don't know. But we don't seem to be employing, you know, foreign coaches, foreign director of footballs, and we do seem to focus on British players more. I mean, if you think about Ollie's recruitment, Harry Maguire, Dan James, Wan-Bissaka, then we've got Telles, Bruno on this side. Who else have we bought? Telles and Bruno. Diallo, Palestri. So, I mean, there are, you know, to be fair, there are foreign players coming in. But if you look at this summer, I mean, look, Sancho's British, Varane would be French, Trippier's British, you know, the CDM could be non-English. So, you know, it could be 50-50 split is absolutely fine. But to me, it shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about who's better. And to be honest with you, I think we've worked through the process there. Is there a British focus at United? Probably not. I think it's more about jobs for the boys. That's the problem with United. Recruiting from within, taking people on who've got no experience, I mean, look, I always say this about Michael Carrick. Apparently he's a brilliant coach, but, you know, he was recruited from within the club. He sat next to Mourinho. Mourinho didn't take him with him, you know. Maybe he tried to, I don't know. But there's a lack of experience in our coaching, and there is a lack of experience in the way that we recruit. I think I would spend the 85 to 90 million on a world-class CDM. I think Sancho deal is laying the groundwork for Haaland next year, hence Cavani's extension, says Clarkey. Good point, Clarkey. Hope you're well. Thoughts on Dumfries instead of Trippier, says Daniel Kirk. I like Dumfries. I liked him when he played against us a couple of years ago, and you know, if he's available for 20 million, I do like him. But I don't think he would come to United because he should play first team football and he would take Wan-Bissaka's spot. So I don't think we would do that deal, to be honest with you. Gaza, new Spurs manager. Retro, he could well end up being Spurs' new manager. Why a backup right back over a CDM, says Advath. Well, this is the worrying thing, Advath. We all know we need a centre defensive midfielder, but what if Solskjaer thinks he doesn't? You know, at the end of the day, there is compelling evidence that Ollie thinks we don't need a CDM, and you want to know what that compelling evidence is? Picking McFred for most of last season. He could have used Matic more. He could have used Donny more. He could have put Pogba in the midfield more, and he obsessed about McTominay and Fred. To buy a midfielder would be to break up McFred. Ollie may well think McFred are fine. He certainly showed last season that he thinks they're fine. So maybe he thinks they're good enough. And look, Ollie is stubborn. Ollie is stubborn. Remember Lindelof and Maguire? Around Christmas time, people were like, stop using them, stop using them, stop using them. He used them all season. He never stopped using them. So, you know, he may be, look, I'm convinced McTominay and Fred are the right players and I'm not buying a midfielder. You know, there's a very big chance that that will happen. Just because we don't want it to happen, we're not the manager. We're not the manager. Mark, it's also almost 3 a.m. in Long Beach, California. You're an inspiration. Keep doing what you do. Your content has kept me sane through COVID. Thank you for everything. Big up to the family and Seb. Thanks, Christian. What a lovely message on a Friday morning. And big up to you. I hope you're doing well and everybody who's watching this morning. Okay, and on that lovely end to the show, we will end the morning show. Obviously, we will go live if there is anything big happening today. It seems to be picking up a little bit at the moment, so hopefully there will. Please smash a like on the video and make sure you subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Obviously, we've made our first signing of the transfer window with Levin, who debuted on the show on Wednesday night. He's now a member of the United Stand crew, so hopefully we're going to get him on a show today at some point. We will have a 7 o'clock show, and we're contemplating even doing a 10 o'clock show tonight as well after the England game, so we may well have a couple of shows for you today. But I will be doing England versus Scotland. Join me for that. It's going to be Passion FC, 8 o'clock tonight on That's Football. You can join me for that one. There's an England versus Scotland preview, which I think you'll really enjoy. There's some accents and impressions in there that I think you'll do. But will we get Scooby-Doo, or will we get let me at him, Scrappy-Doo? We'll see. There's no need to separate McFred. They can both sit on the bench, says Joseph. There you go. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you all in a bit.